I got an advertisement for, at the end of all these sessions, I have to make little advertisements for the next ones.
Okay, what do you have next?
Let's see if I can get it. Oh, did that show up for you?
Yeah.
Yay.
Oh, Father Ambrose, wonderful.
Yeah, from Germany, so we have to do it at 9 a.m. here. And then it's like 6 a.m. for him or something. It's just really awkward timing. Okay, so yeah, I can just do that. I'm gonna go check with our tech guy to make sure. Oh, it's all good? Okay, yeah, he says it's good. We're streaming live, so. Let me see, there's some other people in the waiting room. Mike Newton, Paul. I suppose to just let them in and just chat with them for a while. Is that okay? Or
sure, why not?
Yeah.
Would you like me to show some pictures from my lab?
If you want to, yeah. Hello. You guys are early, so we're still working out PowerPoint presentation stuff, but we thought we'd just let you in. Okay, I'll be back in a second. I want to go check something.
All right.
Yay.
Yep. That'll work.
Looking good.
Yeah. All right, let me stop sharing.
Yeah, we'll see. I think I'll have Father Gregory go first, and then you can go second.
Sure.
And then, yeah, and then have a conversation, whatever organically arises between you two for a few minutes, and then we'll open for Q&A.
Right. I was trying to think of whether I'd ever talked to him directly about these things since like I was a candidate. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. It's pretty good. This was Father Jerome's idea for a talk. He's like, get those two together in a room together, see what happens. So I think it'll be good.
See, so get them to the room together, and then we just kind of stare at each other.
Oh, it'll be good. Okay, 7 minutes till 7:30. Maybe
Welcome, Bridget.
Hello. I think we're going to try. We may have to check out and then go back onto a computer. We were trying to see if we could throw it up to our TV, but I don't know if Zooms can do that.
Well,
You're the scientist. Does it work?
I haven't tried that.
Zoom broadcast to a TV.
Okay, I think it only does it with YouTube.
Yeah, that's probably right.
All right.
Is that Brother John?
Yeah, that's Deacon John. See? But we're not on video.
Wait.
We can do the video and then you can see us. But we're gonna go somewhere.
We're from Benicia and we watch you all the time.
Wonderful.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You're great. I want a playlist of your
Wednesday prayers.
yes, of your with the saints.
Okay. Well,
You know what I
thank you.
mean? On the YouTube, because we want to watch them all, but then we have to sort through them to find them.
Yeah, we're trying to come up with a new system,
All
so
right,
it's a
we're
little
gonna
bit
hang
easier.
up and go to a different. Oh.
Yeah. All right. Well,
We'll meet you in a minute.
we'll meet you in a minute.
Sounds good. Okay. I feel like I should have had a countdown timer overlay on my screen here.
Yeah, that would help.
T minus 5 minutes, starting at 7:30. But it's okay. Something to work on for next time.
You could mount one on the wall behind you.
I could do that.
Is there anything new in Menlo Park?
No, all the kids got back to school for the first time last Friday.
Wow.
That was kind of exciting, but then they just changed our level yesterday. So I don't know if they can keep it that way.
Yeah, Oakland just went back to purple again, which, I was in Seattle when all this went down, so I don't know the whole system, but I was talking to the rector of the cathedral, and they're back to no public masses. It's all live stream.
Oh, I'll make you a co-host.
Okay.
Just in case you need to do something.
Well, apparently share screen still already works for me, so I could just flip through some slides, let people look at those. We got 3 minutes. I could do my dissertation defense presentation for the people that are waiting. There was, when we were at Mackenzie Bridge, there was one night we were, Brother Anthony and I think we maybe it was after we watched one of the movies or something. And he and I ended up just talking for a while. And he asked a couple of questions. I can't remember how it started, but I ended up talking about my research. And at some point I was trying to answer. It's like, this is a lot easier with pictures. Oh, wait, my laptop's right here. Let me just show you the slides for my dissertation defense. And I just started going through the slides with him. We spent quite a while in that conversation.
Nice.
He was totally into it too. It's like, it's already kind of late at night, but you're. See, now that I'm co-host, I'm also seeing the waiting room messages.
Okay. Someone with just an iPhone. Do I trust iPhone?
I hit admit. We'll see. And we can compete. Mic systems.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
Now you have better resolution.
I'm getting on a Zoom call. Hello, everybody. I'm going to mute, but I don't know how many people are on this call, but hi there, everybody.
Hello.
I almost forgot that this was happening, and then Paul Mittigi reminded me, and I'm like, oh my goodness, log on. Okay.
Yay.
I'm Lori Batista. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Lori.
Hello.
And thank you, Paul, for reminding her.
Yeah, she
Hi,
would have done the
Lori.
same.
Sorry.
The question is, where's Father Gregory?
Might just be me talking to myself tonight.
I'll text him.
Yeah.
Hey, quick question. So, our whole family's here, John, Paul, and Tina, and everybody. Is this something we should interject with questions, or is it like more of a, should we wait to the end? Whatever you think is best.
Yeah, when we began, I'll start with a little introduction explaining the structure of it and how it's going to run, okay? But I'll just wait for Brother Gregory to get here and everybody else. But basically, there'll be time for Q&A at the end. But if you have any questions during the presentation, type them in the chat channel so you don't forget them. And then that'll be an easy way for me to introduce people to ask their questions towards the end, okay? But yeah, structure-wise, it'll be Father Gregory give his story for 10 to 15 minutes, Brother Paschal 10 to 15 minutes. Then they'll have a conversation between themselves, just talking about what they experienced from both of their different paths. And then we'll open up for Q&A at the end for the last 15, 20 minutes or so.
Sounds great.
But where is Brother Gregory?
Father Gregory.
Father Gregory, yes, he's newly minted. Huh.
Hello to all the newcomers. You know, while we're waiting, I'm just going to share my screen, show some slides, just because we have some fun pictures. Which of course is not fair for me to just show you pictures and not explain what it is. So I was in a lab that was all about making a new type of camera for telescopes, and it had a new type of detector. And so this is what the detectors look like. On the left is what a single pixel looks like. It's a little electrical circuit, but you have to keep it extremely cold. And then on the right is what 10,000 pixels looks like. And here's what some of the readout electronics looked like that I worked on. There's little computers basically in there with a bunch of other fancy boards to create electrical signals to send into the pixels. And then when light hits the pixels, it changes the electrical signal and then comes back and then the computers process it and tell me when light hit. This is what the outside and the inside of the camera looks like that we're working on. And multiple star system that they were looking at with the camera, where they block out the light from the brightest star so they can look at the surrounding stars. And this is not my picture. In fact, this is not a real picture. But my lab was interested in planets and other solar systems, but also my particular interest was in pulsars, these small remnants of large stars that blow up and then the core collapses down to something fairly small. So here it compares to like Manhattan Island. It has a huge magnetic field, is spinning, shooting beams of radiation of all kinds of light, and gamma rays and things, and that the beam rotates with it. So it's like a lighthouse where every time the beam sweeps past us, we see it flash. So we had cameras that would work very fast, and so we could see the flash, whereas other cameras couldn't do it. Here's 2 pictures from the actual camera. For anyone that's coming in, I'm just entertaining people with slides. This one was from another talk that I gave, but this is the crab pulsars in the middle of the image that we've got. It's 2 stars that go around, and then there's kind of neighboring stars. But we start with images that look like the left, where it's very grainy, just because every pixel is very precious that we work on. And then you sit there and take a whole lot of data and process it, and you can make something that looks more like what's on the right. Let's see, I probably have some other science pictures that I could bring up.
Oh, can I ask why you're showing these?
Just to kill time until Father Gregory gets here.
Oh,
these are all things. This is from research that I did in my lab. I'm just kind of showing off different pictures.
Foreign. It's very foreign. Language. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I was like expecting a spiritual talk, but this is cool.
Yeah, we'll get to the
pulsar. I was like, am I in the right Zoom meeting? No, it's cool.
Sorry, we're just trying to kill time because Father Gregory isn't here yet. So
it looks
Brother
interesting.
Paschal's doing what he can.
No, I know. I'm just teasing. The pulsars rotate 30 times a second.
All right, I'll stop right now.
I'm not the scientific kind of person. That's okay.
That's okay. Not a prerequisite for today.
Appreciate it.
You made it.
Good evening. Sorry, there were too many people in line for confession. Sorry about that.
Important things.
Yeah, important things.
Wonderful. Well, we're glad you made it.
Thank you. Yes, I'm glad that I made it too.
Okay, so how about we actually begin? We'll start with a prayer, okay, everybody? In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving us this opportunity to reflect on how you call us to serve you in science, in faith, in religious life, and how you call people from all walks of life to dedicate their life to you in the beauty of your creation and the glory of your Son, Jesus. And please help us understand what they have to share with us today, and please help it change hearts going forward. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to our wonderful talk here by Father Gregory and Brother Paschal. The structure is going to be very simple. Father Gregory will first start to explain how his science and his hard science in chemistry led him to embrace the religious life. And then Brother Paschal will have a similar story about how his degree in astrophysics led to embracing the religious life as a Dominican. And then after their short little intros, they will have a discussion between themselves organically for about 10 minutes or so, however long it lasts, just comparing their stories coming from 2 different hard sciences to the Dominicans and to religious life. And then at the end, we'll open it up for Q&A. So at any point during the presentation, just type a question that comes to your mind in the chat window. And then at the end, that'll give me a good way to introduce different people to ask their questions to, either Father Gregory or Brother Paschal, or both, depending on who you want to ask the question to, okay? But yeah, with that, I think I'll hand it off to Father Gregory and he can begin his presentation. Father Gregory.
Thank you, Deacon John. Thank you. So, first of all, my background is organic chemistry. So think about the TV show Breaking Bad. That's kind of like what I did. It's also kind of like cooking. So you put in different chemical compounds, you add liquid, stir them up, add heat, and after a while, out comes your product, something new. So it's kind of, I like cooking. I do enjoy cooking. I think I can follow recipes pretty well, having had all these years in chemistry. So I started chemistry in undergrad. So I did a lot of undergrad research. I went to University of Illinois for my Ph.D., spent 7 years there. So I graduated over there in 2009. And then I moved to UC Berkeley for my postdoc. During my postdoc at UC Berkeley for 3 years, I had a little bit different focus. It's still organic chemistry, but we tried to mix in some nanotechnology in there. So we had a collaborator who specialized in nanotechnology and combined that with organic chemistry to see if we can do something new. And so it was also during that time that I discovered, during that time at UC Berkeley, I truly discovered my vocation in the Dominican order. So before that, I was actually approached by several different vocation directors in college. That was back in Canada at the University of Toronto. And also my pastor would take me to diocesan vocation events. I think they saw something that I didn't see myself. I was just in denial at that time. Whenever they asked me, people in the church, even younger, when I was younger, people would ask me, have you thought about being a priest? Have you thought about being a priest? I was always in denial. I was like, no, you got the wrong guy. No, impossible. You got the wrong guy. Because at that time, all I wanted to be was a famous chemist. I wanted to be a famous chemistry professor. That's all I wanted to be. But I all started having some doubt about that. I found, first of all, the environment of chemists, the environment in which they work in had become very cutthroat. So it was more about competing for grants, competing for different awards and prizes, and some of them have become very protective of their ideas, and they're worried that people might steal their ideas and publish them before they could. So I was a little bit disillusioned by that. But also grad school was really, really hard. Those 7 years were really, really hard. I really worked day and night at the lab. I definitely didn't feel that I was free. I felt that I was constantly chained down to my lab bench, to my room, my lab, and my heart wasn't free. And thankfully, when I was at University of Illinois, there was a fantastic Neiman Center right on campus, and at that time they have a new mass. So I would often sneak away during lunchtime to go to the new mass at the Neiman Center, and that really helped a lot. And also they would offer. I remember when I was writing my PhD thesis, they offered daily adoration at the Neiman Center. I would just go and pray a little bit in front of the sacrament, and then I would have a peace for the rest of the day to work on my thesis. So you can say that grad school made me a really religious person. I realized that I cannot do it by myself. I needed God by my side to help me. to help me to get through the day, help me to have the strength to finish up my thesis, to get my degree. So I think during that 7 years, I definitely grew a lot closer to God, but I was nowhere, to make a decision to become a religious. But at that time, I had some idea about offering what I made to God. So as I said, my project was about making different molecules and studying how to make molecules, new molecules. I asked myself, why did I enjoy it so much? Why, as hard as it was, why did I enjoy doing it? I realized perhaps it was because it was kind of a participation in God's creation. So if you think about, parents, right? They cooperate with God, and their love gives rise to their children. I realized that, through my work and my studies, my research, I was also participating in God's infinite creativity to make molecules that people didn't know about before, new molecules that were not documented before. So I think that is inherently, it brings about a sense of fulfillment, a sense of accomplishment that, I am working with God. So when I came to that realization, I thought, okay, so maybe, as hard as it is, my lab bench is kind of like my altar, and my white lab coat can be seen as a vestment, that kind of like what the priest wears. So in a way, it's kind of exercising the priesthood of they call it the general priesthood of the laity. I offer my work, I offer what I learned, I offer what I toiled and labored to God in my prayer. I said, okay, God, I made this compound, this is for your glory. And if it contributes to our understanding, contributes to human society, it's for your glory. So as I said, 7 years of grad school, it really made me a really religious person. I really came to understand that I needed God. I couldn't do it by myself. But when I was working at UC Berkeley, so I went to St. Mary Magdalene Parish. That at that time was a Dominican parish. We had since withdrawn from that parish about 3-4 years ago. But at that time, it was still staffed by the Dominican priests. And so I remember seeing one day on the parish bulletin an announcement for the Come and See weekend at our House of Studies, St. Albert's Priory in Oakland. So at that time, as I said, I was already kind of unsure about whether I wanted to continue with chemistry, and also, being a postdoc. Postdoc is kind of like a transitional period between full-time study and full-time work. So yes, the nature of the work of a postdoc is still kind of like a grad student, but the idea is for a postdoc to have more publishable results, more things to talk about, and homing on different skills for maybe going into academics or finding a job in the industry. So at that time I was thinking, okay, should I keep my original childhood dream to become a chemistry professor, or should I work in a company and have a more normal lifestyle, or should I really give this religious life a thought? So I called the vocations director. I said, hey, Father, I read about the Come and See weekend. May I come and take a look? And so I did. And that, I remember that was the end of February in 2010. So 10 years ago, I went. I visited St. Albert's Priory for the first time. And a few things really struck me. First of all, praying the morning prayer and evening prayer and in the choir stall with the brothers, chanting all the psalms. You know, I had never prayed like that before. So wow, this is a brand new experience, but I liked it. It struck me in a very deep way. The beauty of it really, really struck me. But also the joy among the brothers. I'm sure you can also see that with Brother John as well. There's the brothers, they really have a great time living with each other and having fun with each other. So okay, that's great. You know, but also very, very importantly, at that time, a lot of the brothers had a scientific or engineering background. I remember, for example, a few of our priests now, Father Chris Wetzel, Father Chris Brennan, they both have the computer background and math background. Who else at that time? I can't remember, but yeah. So I realized that they knew what I'm talking about. I knew what they were talking about. So I said, okay, I can relate to them. That's great. Oh yes, but Father Dennis, yes. So Father Dennis, then Brother Dennis, he has a degree in nuclear engineering. And so yeah, I thought, okay, I can relate to them. I can see where they're coming from. And that's great, even though they are not exactly chemists, right? But also, one thing I think of fundamental importance about the Dominicans. So the Dominicans, you know, we have centuries of this academic tradition, and especially we really take very seriously the harmony between faith and science, and we believe that, you know, since God created the universe and with all of the laws of the universe that governs how the universe runs, you know, it shouldn't be, you know, against the faith. The two of them should be in tandem with each other, because everything is created by God. You know, if science is against the faith, then there's something inherently incoherent about this, incongruent about these. So I really appreciate this tradition of having the harmony between the faith and the science. And to me, this is very important as a scientist. So because of all these reasons, I thought, you know, thank the Lord that I found the Dominican order at that time of my life when I was living in Berkeley, being so close to St. Albert's Priory, and thank the Lord for having this wonderful community of brothers with, you know, this really strong sense of fraternity and charity and joy. And in the meantime, we take seriously the studies. You know, even when we preach as well, we try our best to preach coherently, to make sense of God's mystery. You know, we believe that God's mystery is reasonable. God is beyond reason, but God is not against reason. I think there's a big distinction in these two attitudes, right? So in the first one, we believe that God created a reason. God is reasonable, but because of our limitation, we cannot exhaust God's mystery by reason. There's always room to have to make an act of faith, a leap of faith. But it doesn't mean that faith is against reason. No, not at all. So I think that's very, very important to me, and I think it's also very helpful for me. But also, what I found really, really interesting is that having joined the Dominican order, having started the studies, I found that having studied chemistry really helped me a lot to understand Aristotle. So Aristotle, I think his father was a veterinarian, right? He had a deep interest in the natural world, in biology, in all the changes of the heavens. So he was a scientist. It really was. And chemistry is also a study of changes. You have compound A under one circumstance, you change to compound B. So I will just give you an example. So Aristotle says that everything happens for a reason. There's a finality or an end to everything, an end why everything happens, or everything has its purpose. And in chemistry too, in the chemical reaction, you can definitely map out a pathway under a certain circumstances, a certain set of conditions. The chemical reactions will happen this way and not the other way. There is definitely a clear sense that that it will go towards the direction where the energy level goes lower and lower, and we call it the second law of thermodynamics. So yeah, having learned the second law of thermodynamics really helped me to understand Aristotle. That's great. So yes, I would just say that these are the ways that my scientific training helped me to become a Dominican. It helped me in my studies, helped me in my religious life. So, okay. So now we have a few questions.
We'll wait till the end for the questions. Okay.
Okay, sure.
But yeah, thank you for your presentation, Father Gregory. It's fantastic. Now, Brother Paschal, let's hear the astrophysics pathway to the Dominican life.
Right. Okay. So this question that Brother John originally sent me of, how does my scientific background play a role in my vocational calling? And I was thinking a lot about it yesterday. Of, there's different ways that it comes into it, but I usually talk about all these other influences that kind of brought me to this. So I thought I'd kind of tell the whole story, but kind of point out where the science parts of it are. So I'm going to start back further than Father Gregory did, of where I grew up. Was Yucca Valley, California, out in the Mojave Desert. I was raised Catholic, and all of my life, my family was very involved in our local parish. But there was an important change when I was fairly little. My dad realized that even though he was a cradle Catholic, he grew up in the faith, that there was a lot about the faith that he didn't know himself. And he found this out when my older brother and I were just kids, in Sunday catechism, bringing home our books, and he was looking through them, and it's like, I didn't know that. And he found in himself a hunger to know more, hunger to know the faith more deeply. And so he started studying on his own. He started reading books, and he especially started listening to recordings of kind of talks by Catholic speakers. And that very much influenced me, because if he's listening to this in the car while he's driving me, I listened to these whether I wanted to or not. And so I was kind of absorbing a lot of this material. And I say that I before I was asking the big questions in life, questions of life, questions of religion, I was already being given the answers. And I was surprised in absorbing them at how satisfying the answers were, that how logical and rational the reasons for being Catholic were, for believing in God. Sometime around there's maybe early teenage years, I'd come across the name St. Thomas Aquinas, something similar, hearing about his kind of famous proofs for the existence of God. And again, was very impressed at how far reason could get us into reasoning that God exists. And I always kind of liked his approach to faith, that faith, there's the mystery element of it, this inexhaustible depth, and yet reason can go quite far into those depths sometimes. So that my dad's studying kind of inspired me to study, but I kind of took that on my own, and I started reading for myself. I started listening to podcasts and things, and that kind of continued on through my life. So as I started talking about college and grad school, this was happening in the background. I was still studying. So when I was still a teenager, something else amazed me. That was computer programs. My older brother taught himself how to write computer programs, and I watched him make these really cool video games on his computer, and I was so impressed. It's like, okay, I want to do that. That looks great. And so when I went to college, I majored in computer science at Cal State San Bernardino. And then something else amazed me. I took some physics classes, and I was amazed at studying that, how much we could learn about nature, how much we could describe nature with mathematical laws, how we could make predictions of, okay, how far is the cannonball going to land when we shoot it off? How is this electrical circuit going to work? And we could do this all pen and paper, computer programs ahead of time, and then see it actually happen. And so this was all fascinating to me. So I was eventually convinced to add physics as a second major. So in college, I had both computer science and physics majors. And I did very well. And my professors suggested I go on to grad school. And I said, a PhD in physics, that sounds like fun, which I believe that. I was in for a rude awakening. But I finished college, went off to UC Santa Barbara for grad school for master's and PhD in physics, eventually with a concentration in astronomy. And the first 2 years, I said, rude awakening. It was incredibly demanding, the classes that I had to go through. And I was kind of in this grind and trying to be motivated to continue on, wondering whether I'd be able to make it through. And kind of thinking of, why did I come here? And realizing that I didn't necessarily have the best reasons. One was, I like physics. Physics is fun, but I have other interests that don't hurt so much. So why this one? And it's like, well, I think I probably went to get the PhD in physics because I thought, well, with a PhD in physics, that would prove to everyone how smart I am. And then in early grad school, found out I am not as smart as I thought I was. Watching my classmates doing the homework in a third of the time that it took me and struggling through it and needing their help. It's like, okay, that was a bad reason. I need a new reason. And again, kind of my interest in philosophy and theology in the background and always having that Catholic faith be part of my life, that I said, okay, well, the only best reason I could come up with is, if I'm going to finish this, it has to be for God. I can't be doing it for myself. I didn't know how that was going to work, but I knew that had to be my reason. I just didn't know what it would look like. I said, I'll figure that out later. So got through those first couple of years of classes and then got into research. I joined a research lab at the school that was all about making a new type of camera for telescopes. So I was showing some slides at the beginning as we were killing time of what the camera looked like and the complicated electronics that I was working with. And I was the programmer, so I was doing a lot of the computer programming for the camera. And everyone else in the lab wanted to point these cameras at planets and other solar systems. I was interested in pulsars. I showed a picture of that. Right, so I was doing this research. It was fun and interesting. There was a lot of cool stuff. It was hard some days, but certainly kept my interest. Had that goal of a lot of interesting goals of getting the camera working and also finishing grad school. While that was going on, I was also getting involved at the Catholic parish that's right next to the school that serves the students. It's St. Mark's University Parish. And I met a bunch of Catholic undergrads, Catholic grad students there, and some of them became my closest friends. And they were involved in a lot of different kind of evening groups at the parish. And so I started joining those. I found out that they were going to daily mass almost every day. And so I started to go to mass quite often, because I thought, well, that's a good thing to do. And hey, I get to spend time with my friends. The more I did this, eventually I realized that even if my friends weren't there, I still wanted to be there, that this was an important part of this kind of point of stability in my life. The other thing, so that was one major way my friends influenced me. Another, it was fun sharing interest with them. One of the things they were interested in was Catholic spiritualities. So a lot of them considered themselves Franciscan for one reason or another. So there were Franciscans in the area. They ran the Santa Barbara mission, but some of them thought they might join the third order, be lay Franciscans, secular Franciscans at some point, but they considered themselves Franciscan. They looked up the ideals of St. Francis. They thought that's helpful for their own spiritual life. I thought, that's a great idea. Could I find something like that? But I knew I was not Franciscan, that wouldn't really fit me. And so I started researching religious orders with no intention of joining one. And even just looking at the Wikipedia pages, I remember reading the entire Wikipedia page for the Dominican order. And the first time I looked at it, it's like an order of preachers. That doesn't sound like me. But once I read the entire thing, it's like, yeah, that does sound like me. I love the emphasis on studying, contemplating, and sharing truth. And it's like, okay, I think I found it. So, I've got some Dominican saints to look up to, and maybe someday I'll be a lay Dominican. Okay, I can put that that's another fun interest that I can be looking at while I'm doing my science things over here. I also met some religious. I met some Capuchin Franciscan friars. They had their novitiate nearby, so I met a lot of their novices. Those their kind of second year of formation. They were just getting started in religious life. I was getting to know them, getting to know their stories and what brought them to religious life and kind of what religious life looked like. Because where I grew up, there weren't really religious around. This was something new to me. And getting to even hearing about their struggles. But there's something about them that it took me a long time to put my finger on it, but I finally decided that I was jealous of them. Jealous that they got to live this life of prayer, life structured around prayer, and this life of service. But I didn't do anything with that. That was just somewhere in the back of my mind. So if we move forward to, I'm getting closer to the end of grad school. There's a couple years left, but it's time to start making decisions about what I was going to do next. And I was on this track where I was like, well, I think I'd just continue in scientific research. I would go try to get a job at NASA, do some computer programming for them. A lot of their research centers were very interested in our cameras, so it'd be pretty easy to get a job there. And I was thinking about this, and how much fun I was having in my lab and how much I liked the projects I was doing. But the question that came to me was, who would I be doing that for? Kind of the similar question to earlier. And I had the suspicion that I would be doing it for myself. As Father Gregory was talking about how to do chemistry for the glory of God, that it's possible to have a career like this and do it for the glory of God. But at that point, I didn't really see how that would work. And for myself, I was kind of thinking, I think I would just be doing this because it's fun for me and not because it's actually deeply meaningful for or helping anyone else. It's like, well, okay, what do I do then? And then I thought, well, I've been fascinated with the Dominicans for some time, again, with this intention to be a lay Dominican. It's like, what if I actually become a friar? And that was this, I hadn't seriously thought about it before that. And, thinking about it, well, then I could have that life structure around prayer that I was so jealous of the Capuchins for. And the other thing is, being an astrophysicist in the habit sounded pretty cool. So let me take a step back of why so. I said my friends were involved in all kinds of groups. One of the things I did was these student-led retreats. And so I was involved in one of these retreats, and I gave a little talk on one of these retreats, and I talked about being a Catholic and astrophysicist, and I didn't see any contradiction between them. But the talk was on a lot of different things that wasn't really featured, just something I kind of put out there. And someone on that retreat left me a note that said that my talk removed his doubts about the existence of God. It's like, whoa, how did that happen? So here I'm thinking about, what if I became a friar? I was imagining, what wouldn't it be cool if, and cool in the sense of for the greater glory of God, if someday there's some people just chatting and saying, I don't know, are we sure that God exists? Hasn't science disproved that? And the other one says, well, I know a Dominican friar who has a PhD in astrophysics, so it seems like they're compatible. It's like, maybe that's the meaningful thing that I'm looking for. Maybe that's what I want. Prayer, and then being able to live in that showing that compatibility of faith and science. But at that point, I had not really met the friars. So that was time. It was like, okay, I need to meet the friars. So I traveled to, I started with an astronomy conference at Berkeley. for a week. So I was there for a week. I was like, okay, I'm right there next to St. Albert's. I got to go to St. Albert's. So I went and visited, experienced morning prayer with them, got invited to breakfast a couple times, met the brothers, started visiting over the course of, year and a half, 2 years. And the brothers really sold it to me. A lot of things that Father Gregory was describing. And he was one of the student brothers at the time that I met. And meeting all of these brothers and seeing what they're like and seeing their backgrounds and thinking, if I'm going to dedicate my life to God, I think I want to do it with these guys. So then I did. I went for it. And this is my 5th year of formation. So that original question, okay, how does my scientific background relate to my vocation? You've kind of seen a lot of ways that it does, but I was thinking it's not so much that my scientific background has caused me to go this direction, but when I made this change of, okay, I'm scientific career, get a PhD, originally going to go research, and then, oh no, I'm veering off into religious life. It certainly seemed in some ways to me like a very dramatic change in course. It seemed that way to a lot of the people I was trying to describe it to. They're like, wait, what are you doing? But the more I thought about it, I said, this isn't a dramatic change in course. In some ways, my life had been heading that way all along. It just took me a while to figure it out. And I was thinking, okay, how does that work? I think it's the same part of me that drove me to both the science and religious vocation. One aspect being the wonder at, well, first, computer programs, the complexity of the programs that we could make, what we could do with it, wonder at nature and how we can understand nature. It occurred to me that for most people, the wonder is at like the mysteries, the depths of the mysteries. For me, the wonder is often at how much we can understand, how I can make a mathematical model to fit nature. And same for philosophy and theology, of how much we can know about God, how much reason can go, how far it can go. And then that desire, that love for truth, all of these truths, and then desire to share it with others, which brought me into the order. And as you can see, I've kind of had this dream of doing these faith, science, and talks. And now I'm talking to all of you in a habit. This is a dream come true. So thank you all for listening.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, thank you, Brother Paschal. And thank you, Father Gregory, for sharing your stories. I just want to say what a joy it is to have both of you here, right? There's like 140 different friars in our province. And Brother Paschal's my classmate who's closest in age with me, religious life. And Brother Gregory is closest in age with me physically. So it's like my two closest brothers here together, sharing their vocation stories and their love for science. So thank you both for being here. I don't know if there was something in both of your stories as you were listening to each other talk, but yeah, if there's something, maybe you could ask each other a few questions. It'd be interesting to see what you each heard with your scientific Dominican ears.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I can really relate to what Brother Paschal just shared. I also realized that in my scientific career, I was doing it for my own glory and prestige and aggrandizement, and not really doing it for God. So I definitely realized that it wouldn't bring me to a really deep fulfillment. It might bring me to a comfortable life, but that's about it. But my question for Brother Paschal is, for astrophysics, has it helped you in your studies of philosophy in some ways?
I was kind of thinking that as you were sharing about Aristotle, and not in the same ways that it has for you, I think. Mm-hmm. I think I didn't find this, easy mapping from what I studied before to the philosophy things. Although, like I said, I've been kind of, philosophy and theology were kind of already my hobbies. Mm-hmm. So I came into the order knowing quite a bit about Aristotle, mm-hmm. knowing quite a bit about St. Thomas Aquinas. So I didn't need to kind of come up with those analogies, but it still was very interesting. I think it's generated a lot of conversations with the brothers. that take a philosophy of nature class and talking about, okay, here's the Aristotelian way of looking at it, and then they're, hey, Brother Paschal, how about the astrophysicists look at this?
Yeah.
And get into some very, even today I had a discussion that almost felt a little bit heated about just like motion with one of the brothers of, how would, Aristotelian way of looking at versus, no, general relativity, it doesn't work that way. Not that the Aristotelian way doesn't work, but trying to figure out, okay, how do those relate? It hasn't been so easy for me. I'm still working out some of those mappings. I can sometimes wear my Aristotelian hat and then take it off and put on my astrophysicist hat and annoy some of the brothers, and yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, well, we have a few questions here. The first question's for you, Father Gregory. Just simple. How long have you been a priest?
2 months.
2 months. 2
Yeah.
months. Yes, he
Not
was.
very long.
Brother Gregory was ordained a priest when I was ordained a deacon.
That's right. So I've been a priest as long as you've been a deacon.
Yeah. Wonderful. And there's another question here from Denise. Wanted to ask about whether you guys teach or if you have plans for teaching. I will, Denise, if you want to unmute, you can ask your question yourself if you would like.
If there's anything you want to add to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you both still, let me see, what was, I was trying to think what the question was now. Do you teach just science classes anywhere, or are you just 100% doing, this as a priest order, just doing this exclusively? Does that make sense? Like, how you can inspire, like, say, people who are, young kids who are not young, but they're trying to get into a science type of career. Maybe they need some inspiration, and you're such good, teachers and have a really good background in that area. I just didn't know if that was something you'd still do.
Thank you for that. Neither of us are teaching science at the moment, unless Father Gregory has started it. But it's partly how it works. Our formation, we have lots of things. I'm usually pretty busy just studying philosophy and theology. I think Father Gregory now is getting very, very busy just getting used to being a priest and doing all the normal priestly things. Okay. It's something that's come up. Something that people have asked me a number of times, and my first focus is doing kind of the faith science talks, but I'm open to the possibility of teaching science in some capacity. I've kind of thought more about teaching the brothers science at some points.
I see.
At some point, I want to do like some seminars for them.
Yeah, it seems like you love science too. So it's good that you. And where are you a priest? Where's your church, your parish? Where do your priest ministry?
For Father Gregory?
For both of you, I just wondered.
You go ahead first, Brother Paschal.
Okay, so I'm not a priest. I'm in formation. I'm at St. Albert's in Oakland.
I see. Oh, you're studying. Okay, but the other one, no, is he a priest somewhere?
Well,
he just priest for 2 years.
I am at St. Dominic's Parish in Benicia. So Benicia is near Vallejo. So if you drive on 680 north, go all the way north. After you cross Sacramento River, you'll see this intersection with 780. That's where we're at. 680 and 780.
And you know Father Jerome pretty well.
Yes. I lived with him for a year when I was doing my residency year, like what Brother Paschal is. So 5 years ago, I lived with Father Jerome for a year.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So right now I'm just doing full-time parish ministry. For Dominican priests, we generally don't do just science, teach science classes. Although I know there are a few exceptions. In Chicago, there is a priest who teaches chemistry in one of their high schools.
Oh, I see.
I think it's called Fenwick High School. Also in out on the East Coast, there's a priest called Father Nicanor. He is a professor of I think, your professor of molecular biology, he also publishes papers on bioethics. He really is a genius, that he can do both. I don't think I am nearly as smart as he is. And plus, he doesn't need to sleep. I need to sleep. So he really is a genius. But I think by and large, the Dominicans, we don't just teach sciences. I know some Jesuits, they do that, but generally we don't. We still stay closer to philosophy and theology.
Yeah.
Also, I have an anecdote for you. I remember in my first year information as a novice, we were taken to visit the Catholic community at Stanford. So we were there, and after the Mass, we were just talking to the students, coming out from the church, talking to them. And I remember coming across this young woman. I said, "Oh, how are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm kind of stressed." I said, "Oh, what's going on?" She said, "Oh, I have this chemistry problem set. It's really hard. I'm not sure how to do that." I said, "Okay, let me take a look." So she showed me her chemistry problem set. I said, "Oh, okay. That's why it's okay." So I just went on and showed her how to solve her problem set. And
oh yeah. That's what you could be. You could be like tutors or something,
right?
Volunteer tutors, right?
and Father Isaiah said, that just goes to show you that no matter how busy you are, you should still come to church on Sundays, because maybe somebody will help you solve your problems.
Yeah, I just think somebody would. I think you would be great tutors too, because you have that gift.
I try.
Thank you, Denise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, welcome. Denise. Okay, the next question is from Lori Batista. She has a question for you guys, so go ahead, Lori.
Okay, so hi everybody. I'm Lori Batista. For those of you who know me, I'm going to make a statement, and then I'd love to have your comments about the statement. I have a daughter, an undergraduate daughter, who is actually attending UC Berkeley right now, and she's taking an astronomy class with Professor Filipinko. So if any of you, if you know who that is, I guess he's, very strong in physics and astrophysics, etc. He holds a seminar for his undergrads for questions, and I guess my daughter asked him a question that I want to repeat, and I'd be curious to hear your kind of perspective on it. And it was something, and I'm not a scientist, okay? So I kind of halfway don't know what I'm saying, but I'm curious what you guys think. And that is, she asked the question about a proton. She said, from the perspective of a proton, I guess going at the speed of light, what is the position regarding time for the proton? And I think what Professor Filipinko said was something like, it's now, like right now. And so then my daughter, Francesca, said to him, well, that has deep philosophical and theological implications. And I mean, she didn't go on further, but this idea that if we believe that God is light and God is inside the eternal now, and if a proton is at the speed of light and at a certain point, like what's its perspective on time? I'd just be curious to hear, like on that sort of question and answer, like any thoughts you might have about that, because I thought it was a very interesting conversation and I wanted to hear more. And, who better than the two of you who are astrophysicists and chemists to address that, if you don't mind. I know it's a big question, but just curious what you guys might think.
I have too many thoughts. I think I know what the question was about, because I'm guessing, well, if it's a proton, it would be getting close to the speed of light. They can never quite go to the speed of light. And in relativity, there's an idea that different observers going at different speeds will observe everyone else's kind of time or clocks running slower if they're moving fast. So as the proton gets close to the speed of light, it'll look like everything else stops, and its entire lifetime it can go through where everything else seems to have not moved at all. So I think that's where that question was. It's no need to get into the scientific details tonight about that. But what was I going to go with that? There are some interesting philosophical kind of implications when physicists talk about time, because we have our way of talking about it, which doesn't always match up with how the philosophers are talking about it. I'm in a class with a philosophy professor and another Dominican priest, and I was trying to describe or kind of quoting some various cosmologists of, there's all different opinions. There was one that says, well, one guy who writing this book says time isn't real. Time is just appears real, basically. And my philosophy professor says, well, I think time is something too important to leave to the physicists. That at some point physicists tend to leave the physics part. Well, sometimes some of them have this tendency to opine on questions that are no longer just physics, that they're also philosophy. But often if they're starting to comment on it but don't have the background in philosophy, at some point the philosophers can look at it, it's like, I'm not sure that makes sense. So it's kind of fun.
If I could interject, I mean, I think part of why I'm asking this question, and I invited my daughter to be at this talk because it's right up her alley. She's specifically interested in the intersection of philosophy, cosmology, and theology. And so I'm just curious, I guess, in terms of your trajectory of having studied those things and then worked your way into the priesthood, I'm imagining that intersection interests you as well. And I'd just be curious to know, like, how you're synthesizing all of this together now, in your studies.
Right.
And, yeah.
And that's a good question.
Your work as a priest, like how you've been sort of like on the journey, but and you kept thinking like, okay, next step. So I guess when you take all of this learning, and I guess we always continue to learn eternally, we just keep going on and keep learning, but how do you anticipate really, taking all that you've learned and giving it to others? I mean, I know the Dominicans, you obviously order preachers through your preaching, but is there anything else that you think you might be doing as well?
It's kind of too early to say for a lot of it. I'm still kind of figuring out, like you said, next step. I'm still looking at, next step. I am interested in teaching, whether that's teaching science or philosophy or theology or some combination of those. We'll see. There's lots of things to be worked out to see how that would work out. How to integrate everything, for a lot of the details, I'm still working on it. I was like, okay, there's not going to be a contradiction, at least between faith and science, but some of the philosophical explanations versus the scientific explanations, there's a lot of details that they're really hard to work out of how does this fit together. Just kind of one step at a time, kind of trying to and don't always have time to work on that project. I've got lots of other projects, but that's something that, I don't know, it's kind of a hope and kind of a long-term project for the future. Father Gregory, did you have anything to add to that one?
Well, I guess, I think for God is outside time, right? So that's why God sees everything simultaneously, if we can say simultaneously. But a proton, it could slow down and therefore somehow experience time, for example, in the changing of its energy state or spin state. The proton could change. It could slow down and experience time, or it could speed up. But as fast as it goes, it still cannot go quite as fast as the light, right? So I think it can have approaches being timeless, but it's still not entirely timeless. So I think That will be the difference, whereas God is entirely outside time.
Yeah, some of these things may be helpful analogies to get some grasp of, again, the faith has some of these mysteries are just so, bottomless depths that you can ponder for all eternity and never quite get to the bottom of. Part of it is, how is, what would, well, I don't even, how would you even say, how would things be for God? It's like, well, we can think about protons or particles and things, but it's not really going to get us there. Maybe it's a helpful analogy, but as Father Gregory points out, I think philosophically, there's a difference between it seems like time stops, or it seems like everything happens in an instant versus God just being completely outside of time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a question now from Dan Webb. Dan, feel free to ask your question if you would like to. Unmute yourself.
Sure. Just wondering if whether in your scientific careers there were times where you had colleagues who, atheistic colleagues who may have believed that religious faith, unlike your belief, is incompatible with science. And if there were, how did those conversations go?
I can go first now. So yeah, there are plenty of them. Most of the people I was working with were atheists. However, I found sometimes the culture can be a little different place to place. Where I was, because there were so many atheists, when you meet another physicist, the first assumption is that they're an atheist. So you don't often have people that ask me, do you believe in God? They just assume, of course, no, you don't believe in God. And it's only if it comes up in some way. And usually it would come up just as a joke sometimes. There was one guy that said, oh, you believe in God? How cute. That's like believing in the fairy godmother. Things like that. But that didn't start an interesting conversation. There was, there weren't a lot that were kind of had the philosophical interest to have a lot of kind of the deeper discussion. It was often very short discussions. But what I did find is that a lot of my colleagues or professors, they may not have respected my faith, but they respected me as a professional. And that made a big difference for what I was doing. That they took me seriously, especially when I'm talking about science, even if they couldn't understand why I had faith. Father Gregory, do you have some things to share?
Yeah, I think my experience is very similar. So we generally don't talk about the faith or religion in the labs. It's just not something that people talk about. And then even when they talk about it, it's usually very brief, and they're often just not interested. Although I did meet a number of Catholic chemists, and what I found was that it was kind of like an interesting surprise. So like going to the Newman Center. Oh, you're a Catholic? I didn't know that. I have no idea you were Catholic. We share one hallway, but I have no idea you were Catholic. Or, oh, you were just a floor above me. I have no idea you were Catholic. So yeah, it really isn't something that people talk about. But I do think that once we make this discovery, it's important to support each other in the faith journey, just because the environment isn't exactly conducive to practicing the faith. And so it's I would say even necessary sometimes to support each other when things are going tough. Not necessarily faith-wise, but when your experiments aren't working, when you're stressed out, it's important to support each other by prayer. And then, I didn't really have that much interesting conversation with my colleagues. And yes, I try to be professional in a way that when I present chemistry, I present solid science, and so yeah, they respected me for that. But other than that, not so much. Yeah.
I just remembered a story. interesting conversation I had was at my goodbye party. So I had my assigned date for dissertation defense, which there's a long story of how I got that through. That I didn't really sleep the night before my defense, and so I did the defense, got through it, and everyone thought it went very well, and then had kind of a quick party then, and then a goodbye party at the beach later that evening with all of my lab and a lot of people that I'd known, and actually, Father Gregory's point, that there were other Catholics that I tended, in my lab, there were a lot of atheists. In the department, there's certainly a lot of atheists, but there were other Catholics and they knew each other, but they didn't necessarily, they weren't always all that vocal about it. When it comes up, we'll say something about it, but anyway, but at the goodbye party, this is when people start asking. I mean, my lab at least knew I was heading into religious life. They'd ask me questions of what is that? What does that mean? And it was kind of interesting that their response was more curiosity. It wasn't, oh, that's a horrible idea. It's like, I don't understand what that is, but knowing you, I think you might like that. And anyway, at my goodbye party, we had this like bonfire on the beach, and that's when they start asking me. It's like, well, why do Catholics teach this? Or why is this part of Christianity? Or why do you believe God exists? And I'm like, I didn't sleep last night. This is my goodbye party. And now you're asking me these things? That was an interesting conversation. I did a lot of talking that night. Right.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we have one final question before we wrap up tonight, and I have one final surprise, the announcement of our next speaker here at St. Raymond Parish. But the final question from the Maharas family is pretty interesting, so we'll conclude with this final question. If you'd like to unmute and ask your question yourself.
Okay, so what are some examples from your science work and education that you've realized or proved that God really exists?
I'm very interested to hear how chemistry proves God exists. Father Gregory, yes.
Nothing directly. I would say the beauty of some of the chemical compounds, the way things react with each other. There's definitely a pattern and an order, but also if you look at those beautiful crystals, they become crystals because there is an order, in a very ordered way, how the molecules pack with each other, and in a macroscopic way they become crystals. So if you think about what brought this order into being, who brought about this order, I guess a philosophical principle is that you cannot have order out of disorder. You have to have a greater order to create something from disorder into order, or to put disorder into order. So you have to have this greater principle, greater cause. So I think thinking about this, I would say, yeah, there has to be a God who put everything in order.
That's a good answer.
Thank you.
I was going to say something similarly. Nothing from my work that I don't think I could directly prove God from it. Although, see it all as consistent. That believing in God, I kind of see it a bit different from my atheist colleagues. That I remember taking a class in quantum mechanics, and just the intricacies of nature that are so not intuitive, that don't seem to fit our experience, but I have these beautiful mathematical formulations. And my thought of this was, wow, God's smart. That I react to it a little differently from others. The order thing, that's one thing that comes up, especially from the studies, but it's something that I can see given my background, but someone else wouldn't have thought of it. I want to share my screen just for 1 second. One picture. So if you see it, this is a decorative rock outside the physics building at my department. And it has a quote from Einstein: "The eternal mystery of the world is its comprehensibility." So it has this deep thought that, why is it we're able to understand the world? Why is the world have these mathematical order to it that we can write our equations and do so much with it? And to Einstein and to a lot of physicists, it's just this mystery. It's like, oh, why is that? I'm looking, it's like, well, I know why. There's an intelligent creator that created it. So yeah, I think that's there's plenty more that I can say, but I think that'll do for now.
And St. Thomas also says that God is the most intelligible, right? There's infinite things that we could learn about God. That's why God is most intelligible.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Father Gregory and Brother Paschal, for giving us this wonderful talk. You've given us lots to think about when it comes to science and chemistry and astrophysics and order and proofs for God's existence, and also the spiritual journey, how you found the beauty of religious life as giving greater meaning to your studies. So thank you so much, both of you for sharing with us all.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
And for big surprise, our next speaker, everybody, you can circle it on your calendar, is Father Ambrose Sigmund.
Woo!
Many of you probably remember him. He was here at St. Raymond's. It's technically still his parish of assignment, this house here. He's still on names in the ledger, but he's over in Germany right now studying. So that's why the next Zoom one has to be at 9 a.m. on December 5th, a Saturday, because that's 6 a.m. for him. It's the only time that would work for both of us. But his talk is going to be on the Eucharist in the life and faith of the church. And that's the little description he sent me, what he's planning to talk about on Saturday, December 5th at 9 a.m. So you can put it on your calendar. There'll be more information that comes out in the bulletins and the Zoom link, and we'll get that all out to you. But I just wanted to share with you who's next on the docket, and you're all welcome to join and tell your friends about it. Hope to see you there. Okay, and that's it. So God bless everyone.
Thank you.
And thank you
Good
for
night.
this wonderful evening.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
yeah, I'll see y'all again. God bless everybody.
God bless.
Thank you.